But would you look at the size of that wooden Viking? Hey, welcome to, and we're back in Kingsburg, California. You may have heard of Solvang, a little Danish town in California on the California coast. Well, Kingsburg is a little Swedish town in California in the Central Valley, right smack dab in the middle between, roughly say, Los Angeles and Sacramento, the state's capital. We're just south of Fresno, California. And besides its Swedish heritage, Kingsburg, California is probably most famous for this. It's teapot-shaped water tower located right here behind the fire department, right behind the main street. That's the biggest goddamn teapot I ever seen. This is one of those towns that because I'm leaving Southern California, I never get here before 5 p.m. By the time I roll through, things are always getting sleepy and closing up, which is the case once again. But that doesn't mean there aren't always interesting things to see in Kingsburg. Look at this. Look at how random this is. Right here in front of JD's Electric, right next to a realtor office. It's a very random Bob the Builder coin-operated ride. I notice Bob the Builder's got a little JD's or JDS electric hat right there. I thought it said JD's, I guess it's JDS. So clearly somebody at this electrical company has got a sense of fun right there. And really there's a sense of fun pervading all throughout the town because like Solvang, a little California farming town settled by Danish immigrants, Kingsburg was settled by Swedish immigrants, so two peoples descended from the Vikings, and two towns that were not only very proud of their heritage, but decided to kind of trade on it by theming out much of the architecture on their town's main drags to reflect their origin stories. So look at this, look at the West America Bank right here. A little bit of Swedish style going on. They've got these red Swedish horses everywhere throughout the downtown. Look at this, all the buildings down here, if not purely Swedish in style, have some kind of little Swedish twist on things. A sort of generic old world look and feel, but sometimes a little bit more specific, because look at this little Swedish cottage right here, built into this old brick building. This is the Svensk Boutique, Swedish gifts. Every time I come to this town, I think, oh man, I want to go inside the Swedish gift shop. Unfortunately, it closed just as I was parking across the street. Look at the little flower pots in the windows, very cute. And all kinds of little Swedish stuff in here. Look at pepparkakor, my favorite. Looks like they got some Swedish coffee, Swedish costumes, Swedish Christmas ornaments, some gnomes. Oh yeah, I love me a good gnome. And even right here in the window, a little Swedish lectionary right there. So hello is hey. How are you is herb or do. Goodbye is apparently hey-do. And no, I cannot help pronouncing it that way because all I can think of course, is the Swedish chef from the Muppets. Look at that, behind everything downtown, dominating the skyline is the giant teapot. Before I head that way though, look at this. They take the theming pretty seriously here because even the Sun Hong Kong restaurant is all themed out. Very Chinese indeed. Then look at this over here at the Salon Zen. They've got some Kingsburg t-shirts. How sweet it is. Oh, these aren't t-shirts. This is some kind of big quilt with like t-shirt looking designs on it. And there's more Swedish some more Swedish decorations in every window that I pass. There's nothing I love more than theming, especially when a whole town gets in on it. Speaking of the town, it's a very cute, very quiet little town. Every time I come through here, I notice that. It's very quiet, very peaceful. Lots of old and interesting buildings besides just the Swedish themed stuff, which of course they have in abundance. Now, I've never been to Sweden. I don't know much about Sweden other than what I learned on the aforementioned Muppet Show. So I don't know what's up with the little horses here. I kept hoping I would find some kind of sign explaining the horses. Instead, what I see are a whole bunch of historical signs showing old pictures of the town before its transformation into the kind of tourist-friendly Swedish architecture. All I think when I see this, it just reminds me of American Graffiti or something. And of course, the creator of American Graffiti, George Lucas, was himself from the Central Valley, a little farther up from here and a little farther up than that. So is Allie right here, my little wife, which is exactly why we're in Kingsburg today, because this week it is Allie's birthday, her golden birthday. I don't know exactly what that means, but I guess I'll find out. And we're on our way back up to her weird hometown, and I needed to stop and stretch my legs, something fierce. Ah, yeah, Varmland. I know what Varmland means. Does it mean farmland? Warm land? Wormland? I am none the wiser. However, I have noticed that even Los Pepe's authentic Mexican food has got a Viking ship up there above its sign. So this is one of those towns where everyone's Swedish, no matter what your background is. And I love this. I love when little small towns will put big old murals that explain their town's history. This says the history of the town of Kingsburg begins in the early 1870s when the Central Pacific Railroad was built and the train stop was named Kings River Switch. Later it was named Wheatville, then Kingsbury, then Kingsburg. This mural says it had its share of saloons and bandits and was considered one of the toughest towns to live in. Until December 1st, 1875, Josiah Draper and his friends established the first residences and named the town Kingsburg. And as they put it, it began to civilize itself. These people do all look very civilized. However, I must say, nobody ever taught the people in Kingsburg not to stare. Look at this, even the dog is staring. That is a little unnerving. If I rolled into town on the train and I got off and everyone was just staring at me like that, I think I'd freak out and leave. It's a cute little place. I love the wooden roofs and the sort of faux Swedish architecture covering up all the old buildings. Look at this, even down the little alleys over here, even behind the fronts of the buildings, which you would expect to incorporate the sort of Swedish theming. This random back entrance to this building has got a little peaked fairy tale cottage style roof jutting out over here, right across from the dumpsters. I love little towns like this. I love stopping off at little walkable municipalities such as Kingsburg, kind of checking out the scene. Looking at it today, it's very hard to believe that sign that there were all kinds of bandits and saloons out here. Today I see a lot more little colorful horses than I do saloons. It's so peaceful and quiet and nice. By the way, I really want to sit on these horses, but I have no idea whether they can handle the weight of a human man. And I get the feeling this is one of those towns where if I broke one of their beloved horses, I might end up in the town jail, which actually might not be that bad, speaking of, because it's a place I have actually been to before. In fact, I'd say the Kingsburg Jail is one of the finest jails I've ever been to, and we might as well go back. That's right, folks. We're going to jail. And the best way to get there, other than committing a crime, which is what Allie is doing right now, the crime of being too beautiful, is to head straight for the Teapot Water Tower. By the way, before we cross the street, I should mention that this water tower right here was just a normal water tower when it was built in 1911. It wasn't until the 1980s when a resident of Kingsburg was visiting Iowa, of all places, and saw a similarly modified water tower that they decided to add the water tower to the other Swedish charms here in town. And I did not know that Sweden was famous for its traditional teapots or tea kettles. What's the difference? I don't know. Does anybody know? Can anyone say? But yeah, since the 1980s, this has probably been the most famous thing about this town, other than, of course, its Swedish festival, which it still hosts every year, even though the town's population is no longer majority Swedish. In fact, I'm not sure very many Muppets live here at all these days. Anyway, the Teapot Water Tower is not what we're here for. I believe the town strongly frowns upon anybody climbing up there, so where we're going, like I said, is directly to jail, which is this building here, basically right underneath the foot of the water tower itself, and it's already notable as being one of the only jails I've ever seen where men are trying to break into the jail instead of out of it. Look at this. Even the dog is like, what in the heck are you doing? I love this little jail. A lot of towns will preserve their old, small, historic jails, but Kingsburg's jail is unique because rather than removing it to some historic park or just putting a sign or a mural on it and that being enough, this one is actually open every day of the week. And they very strongly encourage visitors to step on inside, especially with this sign right here. Look at this, open. Come in for a visit. We are lonesome. Signed, the prisoners. And the sign is no joke. There are prisoners in here and they love to be visited. But of course, first you gotta make it past the jailer, who's busy over here typing up some reports. Every room in the jail is fully staffed with amazing mannequins. That's right, mannequins. There ain't no womakins around here, at least not yet. I love this, look at this. They've restored the jail and restored all the jail cells. So look at this guy in here, reading his Bible, trying to repent. He can't resist playing that rock and roll music though. It's like a little Richard in there. And then over here in the bigger section of the jail, in the big old cell, oh boy, it is still going on. One of the longest poker games in America. Not the longest, that's probably in Tombstone, Arizona. But one of the longest. Look at this. You got the old card shark right here who's been locked up for grifting in town. And then the young farm boy, the young Rube. This poor sucker's been being taken for all he's got for years. Look at that. He's got a spittoon next to him, but you know he probably doesn't use that thing. And then this old card shark right here with his pack of cigarettes in front of him, an ashtray, well, a little bowl full of cigarette butts. And look at that. Look at that. He can never lose because he's got an ace up his sleeve. Quite literally. The last time I was looking at this, I was trying to figure out what in the world is he actually getting off this guy? Is this guy loaded with cash? Maybe he's gambling for his sandwich, but clearly this guy had more portable property than I thought. He might be out of cash, but he's still in the game because as Allie just pointed out, look at that right on the center of the table. They're gambling for a light bulb. This is not a bad jail to be locked up in, all things considered. You got a card table, plenty of cards, a spittoon. There's a little bookshelf in here with a cane in case you get tired. Look, they got a checkerboard in there or a chessboard. They have razors. They let the prisoners just have razors. I've never read this particular book before. Loose Weepers. Oh, Losers Weepers. I thought it said Loose Weepers. I think that young farm boy's gonna need that book. Losers Weepers. And then the other book standing up here on the left is called Bad Luck and Trouble. They got nice comfortable beds, comfortable bedding, extra hats, a pretty sizable bathroom back there. Last time I was here, I was thinking the only problem is that the jail is infested with vermin, but then I realized that's just the card shark's pet rat back there. Leave it to an old card shark to have his pet rat with him wherever that's a big rat. That's a rodent of unusual size, and not only that, I don't remember what I called him last time, but he's got human hands. For God's sakes, human hands! Now, apparently the original jail they built here in the 1870s was used all the way up until they built this jail in 1925 from, concrete and steel. In fact, they've got a picture of it right here on this kind of bulletin board inside the jail doorway that gives the history of the place. But anyway, then of course this jail was abandoned in its turn. At first it was used as an equipment room for 911 operations, then apparently as evidence storage for a time. Finally, by the 1990s, it was just abandoned to its fate until a group of concerned citizens got together. And this old jailer here got his job back. Look at that, that dog is very happy. No more equipment stored in here. The roof no longer leaks. Nowadays, you can come and visit the prisoners, and look at this. You can put $1 into the stove over there. There's a little slot in it, and get yourself a $1 postcard of the world famous Kingsburg Jail. I love the fact that they tried to stock it up with artifacts, not all of which are strictly historic, as we saw by the Losers Weepers, the book over there. But look at this, they got an old pistol there for this cop who's busy filling out paperwork. They've got a picture of his sweetheart back there behind the electric fan. I love that they have the old phone on the wall, a little bit of a nod, maybe, to the old 911 operations. Got his rifle or his shotgun back there, probably a rifle. Wanted posters on the wall, some old handcuffs and keys and shackles. And here's a story about a young hitchhiker who was in town, trying to get through town, hitchhike up to Fresno, down in Southern California, when a cop stopped by, asked about their plans, and offered them to spend a night in the jail rather than outdoors. Apparently, that young hitchhiker later became the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State to the United States, Cleo F. Shook, if I'm reading that story correctly. So there's lots of history in here, lots of interesting reading to do. And unless you want a postcard, which only costs $1, it is absolutely free. So look at that, there's the plaque right there, built in 1925, restored in the 1990s. They've got some murals with Sam Klein, the old city marshal, and looming large above it all is the freaking teapot. Look at the size of that thing. Just pop back in here because in my brain, there was some kind of story about why there were guys sneaking in to the jail instead of sneaking out. Maybe it's some kind of Mandela effect thing. Maybe I made up a story in my head and that's what I'm thinking of, because I see nothing about it in here. And yet on the back of the building, right behind where you enter, which by the way is right behind the fire department today. So this place is still rather well guarded. You got this mural here where this fella looks like he's putting somebody into the prison. That is weird. It's gonna be one of those things where I drive away and then suddenly I remember, no, there was a story about this. But again, maybe I'm making it up in my own head. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Somebody get Mugatu on the line. Anyway, we're just stopping off to stretch our legs, like I said. By the way, look at this little alley right here, which is named after this guy, George Boyle. He's Constable George Boyle. He died in 1924, so the year before the old jail was built, after being shot 4 times in a battle with some fugitives that had made their way into town. There's another historical plaque here behind this bush. I was trying to read, it's very difficult, about Fred French, who was apparently a deputy night watchman for the community of Kingsburg. There's a story about a little wrestling match he had where he assisted Constable George Boyle in apprehending some ne'er-do-wells, no doubt. And then look at this little alley now, named after the old constable killed in the line of duty here in Kingsburg. And there's a cat in it, which would not let me pet it, but of course let Allie pet the cat. She's like a real-life Disney princess. Oh, rejected, I saw that. That's just because I'm here though. If I was not here, I guarantee that thing would be in your lap already, purring. What? Yeah. See? Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. I don't want to frighten you, but I have to go this way. Anyway, look at this. Look at these little trellises here and these vines all leading out to one of those beautiful painted horses and of course to our car. Oh, but I didn't even notice this. On the side of one of the windows here, there's a little more history of Kingsburg. It's very difficult to see with the shadows on it. And a little map with kind of a walking tour, some of the historic buildings. And much like some of the signs near the jail, it leads you to there's a historic park apparently, or historical park in town, the Kingsburg Historical Park. And I love that. I love when small towns just off the side of the interstate do so much to make themselves interesting to visitors, whether it's the Swedish architecture all throughout town, the gift shops, the nods to the culture of their town founders. Oh look, there's Allie petting the cat right there, see? Or the free historic jail that you can visit here just off the side of the 5 freeway. Apparently pretty much any time, day or night, because every time I've driven through here, even when every other shop is closed, the Kingsburg Jail is just open to visit. You know what the heck? We might as well check out the historical park. I mean, I knew it was gonna be closed, but whenever I have the opportunity and I have a little extra time, I like to at least kind of scope things out for the future. Plus it was only a 4-minute drive away. Dude, look at this place. I mean, I'm just kind of peeking in through the fence here, but it's very clear that there's multiple historic buildings wedged onto this property. And look at that right above the sign, the smaller, more digestible version of the big tea kettle water tower. I love that. They got the old school behind it. I can see several old houses on the property, some old tractors, and then over here, I don't know how well you can see that, but there's a couple of plastic horses, which are a big favorite of mine. Some old covered wagons, some hay. Not a bad way to spend a Saturday afternoon, which by the way is when you have to come here if you want to get inside the historical park. Because the sign out front says that it's only open on Saturdays from 10 to 2. By the way, I'll tell you right now that this is a very small town, but it has a massive high school next to this historical park. I mean, absolutely huge. Must be multiple schools, properties in one, I guess. Anyways, we're driving down the street to find this place. I got distracted and I went too far at first because look at this, look way down there on the corner. There's just a random Japanese gate sitting over here like it's Epcot Center or something right across the street from this cop car. I thought that cop was like hiding in the bush there, waiting to get me, waiting to ambush me like the Pixar film Cars. And then somebody just pulled over as I was walking over here just now. Shout out to Valerie and told me, no, that's just where that cop lives. Like, oh, okay, it's not a speed trap. Yeah, look at this. It's a torii gate, or is it pronounced torii? I can never tell if it's torii or torii. I've heard it pronounced both ways. It's a Shinto gate. It's a Japanese gate, just randomly right here on the side of the highway. So I asked Valerie, I said, what's up with that? She goes, the street used to go right here, but then they turned it into dirt, and then that thing just popped up one day out of nowhere, you know, small town stuff. There's absolutely no context for this at all. I mean, there's some bamboo over there, and somebody's house is behind it, so maybe it's just somebody who's sort of a Japanophile, somebody who really likes Japanese stuff. That is pretty darn cool. At first I thought it might be connected to this food truck behind us, because it says Teapot Grill on it, but since their theme is Viking related, which I'm guessing has something to do with the high school, I don't think so. Well, look at that thing. Weird. Also seeing something else very common in the Central Valley, one of those big old farmhouses down the road right there, like with the big old water tower built into the barn. I love houses like that. I don't know if you can see that. Very Pippi Longstocking-ish. Anyway, Allie's waiting for her chicken bowl with rice from over here at the Viking Teapot Grill. Is it Teppen? I can't pronounce anything today, dude, forget me. My function is not all cylinders firing brain today, you know what I'm saying? Before that continues to spread and impair my driving, I guess we better hit the road. Just one more thing though, I might need to resupply my cooler in here. And look at this, I think I found the perfect place just to the edge of the old downtown. Not only can we refuel the cooler, we can refuel the car right in front of an old Swedish windmill. Look at the size of that thing right there. Welcome to Simpson Liquor, it says. That is amazing. See all these things falling apart. Old California was full of all kinds of hokey, programmatic, strange roadside architecture. So any little piece of it that survives like this, I genuinely really appreciate. I love seeing that. By the way, I did figure out that all these little shields and symbols here are just different regions, I guess, in Sweden or somewhere. I did, by the way, go inside of the store to see if there was like any Swedish gifts in there. No, there was not. Pretty normal, standard convenience store / liquor store. The guy didn't look too happy about the camera, so I decided to not show the interior, but they are well stocked inside. Anyway, off we go. There was our visit to Kingsburg, California for virtually no reason, and there it is. Look at the teapot kissing us goodbye from over there. I'll tell you where we're going in just a second. First, look at this across the street. I've never noticed that before in any of my stops. Look at that historic train depot. That is amazing. Okay, hang on. I might need to go over there really quick. This is always how it goes. Poor Allie. Oh, yes, dude. That is cool. I had to swap out with Allie. Check out this incredible railroad depot. According to the sign here, it was the third one built in town after the last two burned down. It dates from the 1920s and saw its last passenger train here in 1968. So if you're from Kingsburg and you want to ride the rails, you are SOL, which for the kids out there means straight out of luck. Look at this. This is gorgeous. Look at the old luggage carts right here, the old station wagons. Absolutely amazing wooden waiting benches. These are crazy. Once again, it's closed, but I can see through the windows. It's full of all kinds of model trains. There's a model stagecoach in there. There's a US Highway 99 sign. So a little highway history in there as well. You know, for a tiny little town in the Central Valley of California, there sure is a lot of history preserved in this place. Look at that. This is absolutely beautiful, big old waiting room in there. This is like the 5th place I've seen in town that would make an amazing wedding venue. Okay, right here on the door, depot tours or reservations, and there's a phone number there, including for media inquiries. Maybe I'll come back sometime. Look at this inside of here. Absolutely incredible. This would have been where you got your mail, where you left on your passenger journeys, the telegraph office. Imagine if you were doing business in town as a farmer, you probably shipped your produce away from this depot. Absolutely incredible. It's also probably the spot that a lot of the locals went off to war in Europe and the Pacific from, right? Like when you had to enlist in World War I and World War II, a lot of times you'd have to go down to the railroad depot before you got shipped out. This thing is brand new. It's like something out of a Disney park, right? It looks like it was constructed for our entertainment. I'm not sure if it was just really well preserved or it's been restored, lovingly restored, probably restored, I'm gonna guess. Because it looked like on that counter there, they had something about donating to or joining the Friends of the Historic Kingsburg Depot. This is an absolutely incredible building, an incredible find right here at the end of our little visit. And the depot itself is not all, look at this. They got a little piece of track down here, and just in the shadow of the water tower, behind the Kingsburg supermarket and across the street from what I believe is the Kingsburg Police Department, check out this historic locomotive. That is amazing. This looks pretty darn new. I don't mean the steam locomotive. That was built in 1918 by the Baldwin Locomotive Works. I mean new to this site. Look at this like temporary fencing around here. They've got lights to light it up. At least I think these are lights right here, but they're just sort of, you know, extension cords running off in every direction. This looks like it just freaking showed up. This is kind of incredible. If you're a rail fan, right, a train enthusiast, a foamer, as some people call them, and you live in this area, this must be absolutely incredible to get this thing. Got this amazing restored old depot, and then this huge, clearly oil burning steam locomotive. I love that. Look at that big old tank back there for the fuel. That is incredible. Then look at the size of that locomotive. I guess it's hard to tell without a human in front of it for scale, but it's pretty big. It's sort of short, it's sort of snubby. That is one big old boiler. Impressive, most impressive. That thing looks like it could get fired up right now. It's very, very clean. Doesn't look like your standard locomotive in a park type of situation, even though I think that's quite literally what we're looking at. And we're here at the absolute worst time for lighting, of course, but look at this, bringing the 1918 Baldwin steam locomotive number 1238 to this site, a project of Friends of the Historic Kingsburg Depot. preserving the history of the Southern Pacific Railroad in the San Joaquin Valley. And I like this line, funded by donations, built by volunteers. Dude, I love this. I live in a town 10 times, 20 times, 30 times the size of this place. I feel like we do 1/10 of the preserving of history. I love that. Anyway, up close on the backside, on the street side of the depot, not as impressive as from across the tracks over at the windmill, but still, that's pretty interesting. If I ever get down here on a Saturday, clearly I'm gonna go to that historical park over there. I'll try and call the depot, see if we can't get led inside for a tour. And then look at that water tower over there. If they let me climb up there, I would absolutely love to decline. I love a good adventure, but not that kind, not that kind. No thanks, Kingsburg. All right, well, there you have it. Kingsburg, California, for absolutely no reason. Probably a lot more to see here and a lot more to explore. But like I said, everything's kind of closing down. They roll up the sidewalks pretty early in Kingsburg. Plus, we gotta be moving along northwards towards Allie's weird town, up much higher in the Central Valley of California, because what she wanted most for her birthday was to see her grandparents, and so off we go. I'm getting ready to head out on Route 66 in just about a week and a half after this short jaunt up California. And I didn't want to leave you completely hanging after our super lengthy last video, which took me way too long to make. It's basically an hour-plus long documentary about pirates raiding Mission San Juan Capistrano. That's right, a real pirate attack on Orange County. So if you didn't get a chance to see that one, yes, I'm heavily biased, but I highly recommend it. Anyway, there you have it. Kingsburg, California, for no reason. Will we return? Maybe. When will we return? I'm not sure. But someday, I would like to return. Until that time, though, we've done our duty. It's time to go home and sleep well.
Would you look at the size of these new car magnets? What the freak? Oh, so satisfying. Yes. Sleep well.